Now, I'd like to introduce you to a very special family who is a very important part of this movement. Today, they are here with us to share their story and speak up about why they have made Go Red for Women a personal mission. Please help me in welcoming Melanie Baldwin, her mother Carol, and her daughter Kate.
Thank you so much. Like many of you here today, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, and a business professional. I'm also here as a walking, talking research and development project 50 years in the making. The leading cause of death in children is still from heart defects. This makes me a success story and a product of determination, good fortune, and amazing technology. I was born with a hole in my heart, and I had a defective aortic valve, which is the main valve, and I have had 5 open heart surgeries through the years. I'm currently on my 4th pacemaker, so overachiever. After 2 surgeries as a young child, in 1984, when I was 19, they gave me a mechanical valve, which is supposed to last me about 15 years. They told me I had a little side issue. I'd have to take blood thinner for the rest of my life. 2 pills a day. It's a fair exchange, it seems, except they also told me that I would not be able to have children. It causes birth defects. So this arrangement worked fine for me for a while, and then I got married and decided it really was important for me to have a family. So I looked into the alternatives. The blood thinner, since I was taking causes birth defects, I asked what other alternatives are there. I found out that I could use a different one, but I'd have to inject it 4 times a day. So this is what I did. I persisted. I injected this heparin, it's called, doesn't really matter, 4 times a day, and I was doing great. So almost 25 years ago to the day, I was 5 months pregnant, went in for a regular checkup every week, saw my doctor, and ended up spending a month in the hospital. They told me I had developed a blood clot just outside my heart. And if it moved, both the baby and I were at risk for dying. So they tried to tell me that the only alternative was terminating the pregnancy, having the surgery, and starting over. I knew it was a high-risk pregnancy, but I did not anticipate this. So while on complete bed rest, making sure the clot doesn't move, they spent a month trying to convince me this was the best option, but I held my ground. I repeatedly refused, and I forced them to do the open heart surgery when I was 26 weeks pregnant. They went in and replaced my aortic valve with a tissue valve and removed the clot, so I was able to carry on my pregnancy. Not only did I survive, so did my daughter. I gave birth to her July 28, 1990. Yes, I'm that old. There was, however, a side effect that I was not prepared for. I was never afraid of death until I held her in my arms. Cardiovascular disease is a family affair. It affects everyone that you know and love. And I've spent my whole life just fighting to see another day. And I have a wonderful group of friends and family that fight right along with me. I think if you think being me is a challenge, imagine being my mother. I'd like to introduce you to the woman who really has nerves of steel, my mother, Carol.
When Melanie was a baby, there were no visible signs of a heart problem. That has really been true all of her life. She's never looked sick. She's always been active and vibrant, has always had a happy and positive disposition. Ours has been a normal life for the most part, interspersed with times of anxiety and fear, but most of all with euphoria at the ability of the human spirit to overcome what are most often life-ending events. I'm speaking, of course, of Melanie's spirit and her will to survive against the odds. At 3 years old, we went to the hospital for her first surgery. This was to be the only surgery, the one that would fix whatever was wrong. Even though I was staying with her in the hospital, letting her go into surgery alone was heartbreaking. Her cries followed me all the way down the corridors. The surgery fixed one thing, but disclosed other problems within her heart. More surgery was ahead. Excuse me. At 7, we were now living in San Diego. Further surgery was recommended to open her aortic valve. As she went into surgery, she was comforting me, telling me, "Don't cry, Mommy, I'll be fine." This surgery saved her life and left dreadful scars on her perfect little body. At 19, we were advised that further surgery was necessary, this time to replace the aortic valve. We were further advised the night before surgery that the valve the surgeon would use would be mechanical and that having children was not an option. When Melanie was a child, our focus was always gratitude, that technology and medicine would save her life. We never thought of the consequences of lifestyle adjustments, such as not having children, that could impact the quality of her life as an adult. And she was devastated. When Melanie married a few years later, I was not surprised that she decided to have a child against all odds. She had survived ruptured appendix and cardiac arrest after her surgery at 19, so pregnancy while taking blood thinner would be a hurdle, but not insurmountable. The blood clot that developed presented her doctors with a medical dilemma that not encountered before in the US or abroad. Until June 2013, I believed, and Melanie had proven, that she would survive any surgery and any event. The technology and skill of the doctors is enhanced by her will to live. The events of that day in June were the most terrifying and completely out of control in her life. I'd like to introduce someone whose experiences of this event speaks for us all, my granddaughter, Kate.
Bring her a tissue. Not only am I the lucky daughter and granddaughter of these amazing women, I am also an ultrasound tech. I work with people with a range of heart problems every day, and I chose this career partially because of my mother. Her compassion and need to help people who suffer as she suffers has compelled me to do my bit to help. It wasn't until I completed my schooling, though, that I realized how serious her condition was. I almost wished I could go back to my days of ignorance, because knowing the full depth and consequences of what she was born with can be really scary. Even with this knowledge of her condition, it wasn't until June 15th, 2013, that I was forced to accept that my mother wasn't as invincible as she seemed, and that I could lose her at any point without any notice. That day in June, that none of us will ever forget, my parents were having a normal day at home. Luckily, my stepfather happened to be home for one of the 10 weeks out of the year he isn't traveling. That afternoon, my mother's heart stopped. Without any warning, she collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. My stepfather called 911 and immediately began CPR. That kept my mother alive until first responders arrived. For the next 2 days, as she was put into a coma, none of us could function. I couldn't eat, I could barely sleep, I was inconsolable. I couldn't go on without my mom. I couldn't accept that she would never watch me get married, that she would never experience being the amazing grandmother I know she will be. During the times I could actually bring myself to sit by her bed, I couldn't call her mom, because she would reach out and try to pull the IV tubes and the tubes out of her throat and her breathing tube. Even through all the sedation, a mother always knows her child's voice when it's in pain. For anyone who has lost someone, it is the hardest thing to live with, and for 2 days I thought she wouldn't wake up. On the third day, they slowly brought her out of her coma, and when they took her out of sedation and she spoke, my stepdad broke down with all the stress he'd been carrying for days. We hadn't lost her. After 10 days in the hospital, she finally came home to us. So here is my amazing mother again, Melanie Baldwin.
I have to thank you all for being here and for supporting the fight against heart disease and stroke. It affects too many people. Please don't take your health for granted, and don't wait till something tragic happens to take action and get involved. Take care of yourself and those you love. If you're lucky enough to have your health, please do not squander it. Embrace it and be grateful. Not everyone is as lucky as you are. Today I ask you to reach out to your moms and your sisters and your daughters and your wives and tell them that you love them, because life is precious. Share with them what you have learned today. And I also invite you to open your heart and make a life-saving donation to the American Heart Association. I have benefited so greatly from them my whole life. Your donation will help fund the next surgical technique and help implement more education and awareness programs so that we continue the fight of the #1 killer of us all, heart disease. I'm okay now. So I'm here to inspire your choices, to choose to educate yourselves and others. Choose to support and fund valuable research so that women like me can be alive today. Choose to live longer, healthier lives. That choice is Go Red for Women. As we look at our tables, we have some cards there we could always fill out. If you have any, you should have a pen on your table as well, just like this. The gift that you give today